Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Tales from Beyond the Grade with me, Jedi Teacher Man. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Miss Ada Sandoval. Or can I call you Ada?
You can call me Ada, or you can call me Miss Sandoval, or
Okay.
teacher, as most of my students call me.
Oh, teacher, or maestro, I believe.
Maestra,
Because
maestra, actually.
maestra,
That's how they
because
call
you
me.
are from Mexico.
I am originally from Mexico, that is correct.
Okay, so tell me more about yourself and what is it that keeps you coming back to the classroom every day?
Well, I have been a teacher for over 30 years now, and I think every different stage, different reasons have brought me into the classroom. Maybe at the beginning, I was very young when I started teaching, and at the beginning was just to see young children, kindergarten children, first grade children, having fun while learning, and I had the opportunity to bring games and to bring storytelling and to bring projects into the classroom, and I understood and I was able to realize that the students were really getting like that sense of self-achievement every day. So that's the first thing that got me. But over the years, I think the motivation has evolved, and later when I got more into the academics of the teaching part, I think nowadays, right now when I'm teaching postgraduate students business classes, is to see how they can develop skills that are going to help them succeed and be probably better professionals once they start working. But over 10 years ago, 13 years ago, I was also an academic coordinator for a high school, for an international high school. And then it was a little bit different because I could see students coming into classrooms when they were 15, 16 years old. And then I was able to witness like their growth, through being freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. And by the time they were ready to graduate, I was able to see that transformation into more mature, more responsible students. And I think those are the things that make me passionate about going into the classrooms every day.
Okay, now you've obviously got a bachelor's degree and a teaching certificate, but you do have a bit more than that in your locker, correct?
Well, I do have first my bachelor's. I did my bachelor's on public relations and administration because I have always been interested in knowing how people relate to each other, in creating networking relationships and building relationships, and how those relationships are going to help us be more successful at whatever we do. So that was the bachelor's. And then later, as I was already working in teaching, it was important for me to get a certification, as you mentioned. I got a master's in education. And then just recently, I graduated in Vancouver, Canada, from my second master's degree, which is now mostly focused on business administration.
Oh, so an MBA.
An MBA, yes.
Oh,
I just
excellent.
finished my MBA.
I know we actually had a conversation a couple of days ago, and that was what the purpose of this podcast was. We thought, oh, this is a great topic. And it was, well, we've known each other for a long time, and you know that I'm really passionate about teaching. Well, one of the things I'm really passionate about is teaching mathematics at elementary level. And you mentioned how important that those things were at elementary level to teach those really, I don't want to say small skills, but the smaller skills that lead to bigger
Right.
concepts. And can you just talk a little bit about why you believe elementary school children digging in and developing those skills and constantly having that approach to learning prepares them when you see them further down the line,
Right.
as students in university?
Right. I think I saw the necessity, and I was able to share with a lot of parents this topic, all the importance of the students going through all their learning, all the math, all the problem solving, etc. Because when they're in high school, usually parents, it's very important, I think, for parents to know that there is a reason why we do things in our classrooms. And even children or students sometimes think that we teachers only do things just because, and sometimes we do know, we teachers know that there's a reason behind everything we do in the classroom, but sometimes parents don't. And I have found out that when I was able to share with parents that helping them understand why it was important, maybe for their kids when they were younger, and of course when they were in high school, what it was important for them to actually make sure that the kids did their maths, as they say in England, or make sure the kids went through all the problem solving and the multiplications and divisions and fractions and all those. And later on in junior high, when they get into algebra and when they get into trigonometry and all this advanced math, I sometimes see students and kids making fun in social media and using these memes or, these funny posts saying, I haven't used trigonometry today, in a regular day.
Yeah, and the other
what
one's, another day went by when I didn't use algebra.
There you go. But actually, it's not truth, because maybe they did not use the same examples or the same problems. Remember, we were talking about this, I think yesterday, like, yes, Johnny has 3,000 watermelons and he's going to sell 30% of the watermelons. How many watermelons? And of course, those are not real life examples that we're going to actually face, in real life. However, when I have to talk to parents about how important for a kid it is to solve those problems, is because when our students are actually solving all these kind of problems, they're actually developing connections that are going to help them later on make better decisions. For example, first of all, understanding information, categorizing information, prioritizing information, trying to understand, values, what is higher, what is lower. All these skills that may sound very basic and very easy, well, students who do not really go through, like really paying attention to their assignments or their homework, they don't develop those skills. And then later when they're in high school, I have told parents, like sometimes parents go like, I don't understand why my kid keeps making these decisions and he's just like reacting instead of thinking about, decisions like where he's going to college, and he's not taking things seriously, or driver's ed, he's not understanding how to successfully finish the course, etc. And that's exactly when I tell them, you know what, I think your son, your daughter is going to be all right, because they have done their work. They have done their maths, and those problems or those situations they faced in the classroom in the past are going to help them eventually in the future when they start making decisions. But they don't realize that. I don't think it's easy to link the classroom mathematics or math problems that we do in the classroom with how this is going to help me in real life when I become a young adult.
What I'm hearing is, and I see this all the time, so it's not so much the specific problem or the concept.
Exactly.
It's the actual, it's like boarding between the soft skills and the thinking skills.
Correct.
It's being able to take your time and have the patience to, instead of jumping into the problem, as Einstein says, to understand the problem is the pathway to the solution.
Correct.
Until you understand what the actual problem is, then you're wasting your time. And fifth grade boys are just phenomenal at doing I know the answer, right? And it's a case of, okay, how did you get that? Well, and then they can't explain it, and that's fine, because sometimes at that age they're not able to articulate the thinking, but it's the practice of articulating thinking.
Exactly.
And as you say, it's the sitting down and just being able to be patient and realize that, like you say, when you're taking the driving test and you're having driving lessons, you don't start driving lessons at 60 miles an hour, and even in a 30 mile an hour zone, you don't necessarily drive at 30 miles an hour. Correct. Until you can weigh up the environment around you. So it's go slow a lot of the time in order to put those skills in place. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think, for example, high school students, and I have talked about this with my high school students before, because they get upset when they're 15, 16, and I understand. And they go through all these difficult part of math, and they get frustrated. And I try to explain to them it's not the problem per se that is gonna you're not going to face this problem in the future. Going through the process of understanding the problem, trying to first put the information where it fits, all that takes certain skills. It takes patience, it takes tolerance, it takes understanding of values, and then of course doing the mathematical process, either multiplication, division, fractions, or whatever they have to go through, coming to a result, and then also reviewing, is this right result? I'm checking again my process. All those little steps they're taking are actually helping them develop skills that as grown-ups are going to help them. For example, help them make decisions, more important decisions, perhaps like, where am I going to go to college? What universities am I going to apply for? How do I deal with rejection? How do I prioritize which university is giving me a better deal, a better scholarship? So these are actually real life situations young students go through, and sometimes they don't realize that one thing is linked to the other. And I don't want to talk about maybe failure, because I understand also failure is part of learning. However, we all know these young students who sometimes do not make the best decisions, and sometimes I see parents feeling bad and feeling frustrated about, I don't know how to help my kid because he's not really making the best decisions. And I know it's not easy, but trust me, every class we go through in high school, it's meant to develop something specific in your kids' mind, in your kids' cognitive processes, that eventually is going to help them make better decisions. Like, I know maybe he's not going to be a marine biologist, or he's not going to be an astronaut perhaps, but chemistry, biology, social sciences, all the classes are meant to develop something, to change their mindset into a more like an open mindset, so they can make better decisions. Because at the end, of course, they're going to fail, but the better they have probably gone through all the academic path that we at school have for them, I believe that should be the purpose of school. School shouldn't be teaching them the same things that we can find in a book or in internet. Now I tell my students, you have everything here, absolutely all the information, all the books, all the materials.
In the phone.
Everything is here.
Yeah.
They have internet, so they have access to all the information in the world. So why would you come to school to learn something that you already have, access to?
That's the leap we made when 21st century skills, turn of the
Correct.
century, 21st century skills, communication, collaboration, creativity, technology, because knowledge retention wasn't required anymore. I remember history, and it was just about recording dates. When did the Second World War start? When did it finish?
Memorizing. Remember.
You're just regurgitating information back to, and that's when I also think around the time that standards-based grading made a switch as well, because all of a sudden these big concepts, they weren't even concepts, it was just, like I say, knowledge regurgitation.
Correct.
Right? And I do want to go back to something you just said before about when you're saying, kids are going to fail. You don't mean that that's their destiny. You mean they're failing on the way to succeeding.
Yeah, of course. And then again, of course, having parents' guidance and parents' support during those small failures. And I'm going to use one example. When I was usually like a very, very dedicated student, and I will always do my homework and those things. However, I remember, and I even tell this to my students, I have also failed. In which sense? For example, in high school,
you've never failed.
Pass physics.
Surely.
Physics was that subject that, and please, Mr. Jenkins, don't get upset with me, because the reason why I didn't pass physics is because actually I got the math wrong. Not the physics, the problems. I know.
Who was your fifth grade math
I
teacher?
know, I
don't
know, I know, I know. And I always tell my students that feeling also of failing, of saying, I'm trying to do my best. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my assignments and back then doing exercises so you could get better at the whole subject, and still not passing this class when I was in high school. For me, that was a failure because I had never failed any class. But what I share with my students also is that is okay. That is part of learning. And actually, through that failure, I think I learned, of course, to be more resilient. After I cried, because of course I cried, because I took it like, this means, I'm letting my parents down or whatever. There were other times, right? Anyway, but then I failed that, for example, in high school. Of course, I had to study. I passed, and finally I was able to graduate. But also when I went to college, economy, microeconomy, that was another class that I couldn't pass. So I also failed one class when I was in college. And the reason why I share these experiences with my students too is because those are the small failures that I believe our students need to go through to actually develop that feeling of, okay, it's not a defeat. It's not, I haven't lost. It's just a small step back, but I'll get up. And that attitude of learning to get up from those small failures are actually going to help them in the future as adults. So that's the failure I was talking about.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating. And it just adds to that world that we live and work in.
Correct.
And that we love. And I'm certainly hoping parents take a lot from this, because there's times that parenthood has its nightmare elements where you're not sure why your kids are doing what they're doing, and your teenagers are going where they're going and thinking the way they're thinking. But I totally agree, and I totally see it, and I speak to my fifth graders about it all the time, and even the elementary school kids as a whole. That there's a book I had once called "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff," and it's like, don't sweat the small stuff, but make sure you do the small stuff.
Like
take care of the small
example,
stuff.
how do you explain this to the students? Give me one example.
Well, they don't have big things, I'm not talking about home life, because we don't know what goes on at home, and we have no control over that.
Right.
So a lot of the things, how can I put it? The environment I set in the classroom is this safe, happy place, as you can imagine.
Okay. All right.
And it's when you walk in this door, it's like going in a movie theatre or going to a rock concert, or you're going for that escape. There's that escapism element of whatever's going on outside the door, you have no control over right now.
Right.
So make the most of this moment you're in here.
Got it.
Right? If I'm going to go and watch, let's go and say watch the latest Rocky movie. I don't know what number they're up to now, right? But whatever it is, right? I'm going to go and watch the latest Star Wars movie. I'm not going there with a whole bag of issues in my head and worries. That's the idea of going there, right? And when you're in the classroom, and I know this isn't going to, I know there's kids that can't do it, right? But it's my responsibility to at least engage them in the idea of being able to do that. And being in the classroom is, okay, we're gonna have some giggles.
Of course.
I'm gonna make this fun, but I'm gonna make everything applicable. So you're not just seeing numbers on a page; those numbers represent something in the real world.
Exactly.
Right? But everything you do, right down to the precision piece, and an example is, when I write your name neatly. As neatly as you can. I'm not saying become a calligrapher overnight and have the greatest handwriting ever, but write your name neatly. And everything I say is your parents are going to see this at conferences. At parent conferences, your parents are going to see your work. So you're always doing things with that external lens, if you like, that your parents are going to see this. Is this something, if you don't understand what pride is right now, think about your parents' pride, and use that empathy of, my mum always used to say, always do something as though I'm watching you, right? And I always did, right? Most of the time I did, right, as a kid. you're doing things and you just think like, would my mum be proud of this?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So having, when you're doing things, and, kids are impulsive. So they're not going to get it, as we said, they're not going to get it right 100% of the time, and they're not
Right.
going to even do a great job or a good job 100% of the time. But at least they're conscious of it. And there's that sense of purpose in there again. That
Right.
purpose is always a driving force, right? So that purpose is that you take, you write your name neatly. You're not dog-earing the pages of your books that you're reading.
Right, right.
You've got a folder there that your work's going to go into, and that work is a portfolio of work that even if, you see some fifth grade boys writing, it's not, it actually is art. It looks like Picasso.
Well, I know some adults.
Right,
I know some adults.
But it's not, it isn't beautiful, but it's still their best work.
Right.
What they can avoid doing is drawing pictures of aliens in the corner, and girls can avoid drawing unicorns and flowers and love hearts all over which I don't know what's going on, but there seems to be a fad right now, and I'm not
Okay.
gender generalizing there. There's just this thing and it's like I got bored, so I just doodled all over the bottom half of my math assessment, which I did really well on. But it's that thing you're talking about. It's like, we're not going to affect grades here because that's nothing to do with the standard they were being tested on, right? If they got all the fractions correct, boom, they've got it correct. But it's just that extra bit of quality that you're always looking to instill. Like, bring some extra quality to the table.
Right.
And elementary is the years where they can really mess that up, right? It's risk. The stakes aren't that high as long as they're getting the important stuff done. So it's a case of don't sweat the small stuff, but really work hard on making the small stuff as good as it can be, because that small stuff's going to lead to bigger stuff.
Now, I'm going to give some support to your students doing some drawings, because I used to get distracted very easily. I used to do the same thing that some of your students, I believe, are doing. In order for me to focus and actually pay attention to what the teachers were doing, I always had an extra notebook, but I'm sure, for example, some of my teachers probably thought I was being distracted, and probably many of my teachers thought I wasn't paying attention or I was being disrespectful to them. But when I was actually doing some little, and I remember they were like little squares. I was always creating these square figures, but that was my technique, my strategy, something that I developed as a young girl. So that will help me focus on what the teachers were saying. But I do know that sometimes for many of us that might be a strategy, but for many other students it's just like, you know what, I don't care, this is not even my book, I'll do, and it's more like I'm being disrespectful, and
so you've got two things there. one is you're taking care of your brain,
right,
and absolutely fine. No, I don't say some of the things I do see are beautiful, and I'm actually going like, wow, I walk past and I'm like,
you've showed me, right?
That is so cool. And then it's like, you've just drawn that on the inside of your textbook, right?
Okay.
Do the cool in the right place, right?
Right.
Because super cool in the right place is awesome, right? Super cool in the, that's what we're learning, right?
Right,
That's where
exactly.
I say it's not so high stakes. It's a case of, wow, I got to see a side of you there.
Right.
Would have been better if you'd just asked me for a piece of paper. I would have absolutely I'm absolutely going to support you.
Right.
In whatever it is you have to take care of, because I know, I work... I've been on conferences with people and they've completed a whole page of like a mosaic almost.
Wow.
Whilst then being able to fully relate and have a conversation about what the speaker was talking about. So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be anything going on there. I was just, where I really feel the lesson is, it's a case of do what you need to do.
Right. I get it.
In the right place at the right time with the right amount of quality.
We cannot also, I think, forget young students. we react. We're actually learning how to go from reacting, sometimes from our instinct, like reacting before thinking. And I believe also school, going to elementary school, middle school, junior high school, it's also an opportunity for students to also learn how important, of course, emotion is always going to be important, but how to sometimes think about things before reacting, or before actually making an important decision, right? But again, we do know that these are stages and phases our students are going to go through. And I believe parents who are aware that my kid, my student, my son, my daughter is learning, and through this learning stage, our job as teachers, as you said, we have no idea what happens at home, but I believe that it is very important for us at least to know that here at school, my work as a professor, as a teacher, and now in this 21st century, just as you mentioned, is to help you slow down, think about it. Is this the best decision? Are you sure? And we have become more guides, right? Than just telling students what to do. I remember back in the 80s, I went to an all girls Catholic school. So nuns will always tell us exactly what to say, exactly what to think, exactly what to do. And you were not even allowed, to share whatever you were thinking. Like, excuse me, nobody asked you what you're thinking, which is now the opposite. Now we want to know, like, what's going through your mind? Tell me, share what's happening when students are learning, for example, how to hold discussions in class, for example. Their emotion is still, on top. And sometimes it's like, it's okay. You don't need to react. Nobody's attacking you. We're listening to different ideas. This is brainstorming, and brainstorming is about listening. But they're still very reactive, right? And they're still like, no. But that's wonderful, because that is our job as teachers at school, to guide them. Like, it's all right, you're learning. And trust me, I'm not only talking about young students, I'm talking about my postgraduate students sometimes. It's like, nobody's attacking you.
Right.
So it's amazing. I think being in the classrooms, it's the best experience for many of us, the ones who love actually being in the classrooms. And after 30 years, I'm still hooked.
Right.
It gets me, it's my passion, and I'm just very happy that I get to share with the students and with parents some of the insights that sometimes we get. And it's just nice for them to know that everything we do in the classroom, we do because of our students.
Well, Ada Sandoval, thank you so much for joining us today on the Tales from Beyond the Grade podcast. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you.
And I look forward to inviting you on again, and we can have some more conversations that dig into the deeper stuff, and hopefully more enlightening stuff for our parents out there, so that they can subscribe to this channel and make it the best podcast ever. No, we're not. That's not our purpose, but if you could, that would be great.
Of course, I'll be very happy to be back. And it's always great having the opportunity also to speak about something that I'm so passionate about with also another teacher just like you. And of course, if this can help parents and students understand, why we do what we do, I'm always happy to come back.
Right.
Thank you.
And my last word on this, I'll just go back to what you're saying about being in school in the 80s. I was on a conference over the summer, or at a conference over the summer, and this conversation came up about student voice. And I just turned to this group and said, I remember seeing a documentary set in a high school in Chicago about lack of student voice, about 1985. And they went, oh, right back then? I went, yeah. I said it was called The Breakfast Club by John Hughes. And the place just erupted. They thought it was great. But John Hughes made a whole career out of exactly that particular situation, that problem at that time. Lack of student voice.
Yeah.
Lack of youth having thinking for themselves, right?
Correct.
Being shut down, being oppressed in that way. So, yeah.
Correct. That will be another interesting topic to actually discuss in the future.
Well, how John Hughes just revolutionized education. Right. Okay. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.